I did Pinhoti as my first one in November, and just kind of applied for Western States on a whim. Prince Watley was like, "Don't tell me you hadn't been out there to check out the Western States site." And I'm like, "No, I hadn't thought about it," and then I get in, and then I feel kind of awkward because he's tried for so long to get in and is so much more qualified. But anyways, I knew that this might be my only chance to do this race, so I didn't want to mess it up by being stupid and going out too fast. Knowing that the elevation change was 25% greater than Pinhoti. A little bit of altitude at the beginning part. For some people it's an issue, some people it's not, because it's not at true 10,000 foot altitude, but it's pretty close. And knowing that this year was going to be hot, I had kind of already been looking at the history of the heat cycle out there, and I was like, yeah, this one's 2 months ahead of time. I estimated that it was going to be hot, and it was. It was. I think, Greg, didn't you tell me it got up to 109? Where did you go?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Right here.
yeah, which was hotter than I thought it was. I'm glad I didn't know while I was out there it was 109. I knew it was at least 100, but so it was the hottest. It was the hottest race I had ever run in, bar none. That includes 5Ks, 10Ks, that kind of thing. That was the hottest temperatures I'd ever run in, and you just have to adjust your goal. And my goal was to finish in under 30 hours, and by grannies, I hauled it in there for a PR. So, it wasn't much under my previous time, but I got the buckle, and that's what I went out there to get. So, the first 30 miles, when you get out of your car and you look at that first mountain for the first time, to look at it and not be intimidated was a big thing, because it is 4 miles straight up the side of a ski slope. And, and even though we don't have a mountain like that around here, I train at Ruffner Mountain a lot. It was enough. It was enough to do what I needed to do. And I think just going into the race, just being real relaxed. I literally, there's a huge gas log fire pit thing that sits right in the middle of the start area, 20 feet from the starting mat, and we just were kind of sitting. It was cold at the start, like 50 degrees, and so we were all kind of, just kind of propped up on that thing, and literally the gun went off, and I sat there until most of the field crossed the mat. I wasn't in a hurry. I had all day. I had 30 hours to run this thing, and the trail at the beginning was nice and wide, and and all that, but I have a 4-mile mountain to get up. I'm not going to run up it very fast. I'm not that type of elite runner, and so I just took my time and enjoyed it, and got to know some folks at the back, and talked to Gordy and Kalmana Muha, and those guys that are so storied and introduced ultra running to the world, essentially. I mean, I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity, and but that first 30 miles, once we got to the top of that, just about beat the snot out of me. Because it was very, it was high up, it got really hot really fast. There wasn't a lot of tree coverage like we have here. You go out to Oak Mountain and all that, and it's lots of trees, lots of shade. Well, this was unrelenting sun for miles, and on top of a ridge. Extremely dusty. The trail was very muddy and very wet. So by, I'd say, mile 6, guys, y'all's feet were probably as wet as mine, just sopping wet, and stayed wet the rest of the race. And that first 30 miles, just trying to just trying to dial in your pace and not go too fast, but yet I want to clip off these miles. I don't want to miss any aid station cutoffs, because man, they are strict. And kind of try to build some little kind of cushion, because mile 80 was a long ways away from mile 30, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So when you're feeling good, you need to build in a little bit of cushion in there. And I came into Robinson's Flat at mile 29 and a half or so, and which is about the first place that you can see your crew. So essentially, you're running a 50K with no crew, at all. You've got aid stations, but nobody that kind of thing. And I pulled in there, and I was like, that was the hardest 30 miles I have ever run. And the next 30 are going to be even harder, because that's when you go down into the canyons. And I had in my mind that the canyons were going to be like very desert, Grand Canyon-ish looking, like, you know, with the solid rock canyon walls and the, you know, the cow skull sitting beside the trail, you know. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was very wooded and shaded for a lot of it, which helped. I think that kind of suckered some people into running through those areas too fast, and it burned them up, burned their quads up a lot. And knowing that the first 60 miles of this race, there's a lot of downhill in it. And when I'm talking about downhill, I mean like miles worth of downhill at a time. You know, we're real good about letting you know, hey, the next aid station is X miles, the terrain you're going to be running in is blah, blah, blah. You know, and one thing that was really cool about this race, and when John said that they do a top-notch job, I'm telling you, these people know how to run this race. They're very proud of it. Some of these people their families have been working the same aid station for generations. You know, there'll be 3 generations of them standing there helping you through an aid station. They usually have a sentry about a 1/10 of a mile out, calling in bib numbers. And by the time you got there, it was not unusual for somebody to say, hey, Vanessa, welcome to so-and-so aid station. I'm such and such, and I'm going to help you through. You know, what you want in your bottles, go get on the scale, I'll get your drop bag. You know, and you're just kind of not used to that kind of service, you know, at an aid station. If you weren't careful, it would kind of suck you in a little bit. Some of them were real good about getting you out fast. Others, you had to, you know, get yourself in and out pretty fast, because the amenities that they had, like, you know, these ice cold bath towels and water hoses and, you know, all that kind of stuff was a sight for sore eyes when you've been running in that kind of heat, and in a dry heat too. I mean, as soon, half a mile out of the aid station, you'd be completely dry again. You know, it was so hot and so dry out there. You know, a lot of times in 100-milers, you know, I had read about people getting into low spots. You know, I did not experience that at Pinhoti. I had an absolute blast for the whole 100 miles. At Western States, I had a really good rocking and rolling time up to mile 68. And I had told my pacer, just wait, because I've got run left, and we are going to smoke through some of these miles at the end. You know, we're going to get on in. You know, well, about mile 68, nausea set in. And I've never dealt with nausea, ever. I've never had a problem with it. I mean, I can eat a whole pizza and run for 50 miles, and it's not going to bother me, you know. Where it came from, I have no idea. Maybe it was a combination of the heat, the dust, you know, maybe a little bit of the altitude was a delayed reaction. I don't know what it was. But here I found myself in the middle of the night troubleshooting nausea. If I first noticed it when I was power hiking uphill, and I thought, this is bizarre. You know, why am I getting nauseated power hiking up a hill? Really? And I said, well, that's fine. I'm going to run the downs and flats. It'll be good. I'm power hiking uphill anyways. It's okay. Well, then the stomach jostled too much running down the hill. So I'm like, okay, the ups are out, the downs are out. There's no flat on this course. I'm sunk. What am I going to do? You know? Well, you just have to keep going. You know, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just keep troubleshooting, you know? And when you get to a spot like that in 100, if that goal is important enough to you, you will keep cramming the calories down. I don't care how bad you feel, you know, because your body's got to have the calories to keep cranking out the miles. It doesn't matter what your pace is. Your pace could be a 10-minute mile, it could be a 20-minute mile. You still have to put in calories. So, you know, every aid station, I was grabbing hands of, you know, saltine crackers, getting a Coke, which I never drink soda, ever. And, but I knew that had calories, and maybe the carbonated, you know, soda in it would help settle my stomach. I was eating ginger chews. You know, I was to the point where I couldn't even think about a gel, because I'd spent all day, you know, gels and Vitargo S2 was my daytime fueling. And I thought, if I eat another gel, I'm going to puke. that might not be a bad idea. Well, I couldn't make myself throw up. All that came up was the gel. I know that's nasty, but sometimes it's stuff sitting on your stomach, and your blood is still pumping to these muscles and trying to cool your body, and so there's nothing there and it sits, and that's what's making you sick. And I thought, well, maybe that's what it is. Well, it wasn't. So scratch that off the list. Try something, something else. But truly, it did not subside until I saw the track at the finish line. I mean, I stayed from mile 68 to mile 99, so about 30 miles worth of that. What was that, 50K? But on the other hand, at least that part was at night when you're going a little slower anyways, just because the trail is still technical. It's dark, you can't see as well. By that time, you're tired. You've got a lot of miles on you, so you're slowing down a little bit anyways, at least those of us at the back of the pack are. And, so you kind of look on the bright side, and try to come up with, positive aspects, to look at it. And, in my math started to get bad. Both mine and my pacer's watches were gone. The batteries were gone. He was pacing off a field. I was just wanting to get in under the 30 hours, and he's like, you're fine. Our pace is fine, and I was getting my aid stations and my mileages mixed up. I couldn't make the math work. Well, he's an accountant. I'm not one that should question his math. He's a pretty smart fellow, and he estimated you'll come in under 29, and I did. So and look, stepping foot on that track at the finish, to go around to the finish line was a complete, 180-degree turn. Because before that mile coming from Roby Point, I thought it was all uphill. The elevation chart doesn't show it that way. But it felt like I was going up another mountain. I was so tired by the time we got to that point. And I kept asking my crew, where is that darn high school track? I know it's up here somewhere because there's people all along and they're cheering, And but when I stepped foot on that track, man, all of a sudden I had energy like you wouldn't believe. And I started jumping up and down, and I was heel clicking before I got to the finish line, And just to have the privilege to run that race and get that experience and do something that not a whole lot of people get to do, but just to have read about it and heard stories about it. I know people that have done it. I know one guy that DNF'd one time, got in the next year. He doesn't know how he did. And man, he was the last finisher the year he did it, and he said, I will never run another trail race again, and he hasn't. He's like, I'm all for the road. But it's such a storied, historical race. It's not the hardest, race. But wow, just to have the privilege to do it and finish was, just an amazing thing that I never wanted to take for granted. If I was going to sacrifice and do the training for it, if my family was going to sacrifice for me to go out there, and my friends that came out to support me and pace me, on their own dime, I was like, I've got to get to the finish line. I've got to get there, and I'm the poster child for if you set this audacious goal, you can do it. It's for me, I'm not physically strong enough to do it. I'm just mean enough mentally to do it, and I've got a direct link, to God up there, and He gives me a whole lot of strength in that mental department and takes care of the physical part, for me. So, if I only run 3 days a week, and I have a lot of off weeks where I only do 2 days of running, but I do a lot of cross training, and stuff like that. And so, on paper, I should not be able to do a 100-mile race, but I've done 2. So, there's a lot to the mental aspect of this sport. So.